Hola y bienvenidos a la clase del español. Este video es parte de la N.L.L.S, Programa para Estudiantes de Idiomas. Este video instructivo es para el Español 2, Cuento A, Parte 2. Hello and welcome to your Spanish class. This video is part of the N.L.L.S program for language learners. This instructional video is for Spanish 2, Story A, Part 2. For this video, you'll need your classroom journal or notebook and something to write with. Feel free to stop, rewind, or fast forward as needed throughout this video. Empecemos. Today's story is titled La Rutina de León. This is part 2 of the story. Before we get into the story, let's take a look at our I can statements and our additional vocabulary that we're going to be using. On the screen, you see our goals for the story section. These I can statements are things you should be able to communicate by the end of this section. As you can see, they're broken up into 3 categories: novice mid, novice high, and intermediate low. These are called levels of proficiency. Proficiency is basically how well someone speaks a language. Understanding these levels of language proficiency and actively working to improve your level of comprehension helps you develop true language proficiency and improves your capacity to communicate and comprehend both the written and spoken languages. In other words, the more practice you put in and the more you use the language, the better you're going to get, and the more you'll be able to communicate in that language. Pause this video and write your I can statements in your journal or notebook. Now let's take a look at some vocabulary. On the screen, there are some additional vocabulary words and expressions that we're going to be using and incorporating into our story. Don't worry about what they mean yet. We'll be coming back to them shortly. Pause the video and take a few minutes to copy them into your notebook or journal. And finally, here's your story for A2. Pause the video again and take a few minutes to copy the story into your journal or notebook. Now that you have your story written down in your notes, I'm going to read the story to you slowly. Focus on each word as I say them out loud. Pay attention to the way each word sounds. La escuela empieza a las 8 en punto. Entonces, León se despierta a las 5 y se levanta inmediatamente. Después de levantarse, se ducha, se lava el pelo con champú y se cepilla los dientes con un cepillo de dientes y pasta de dientes. I'll read it to you again, but a little faster this time. After, I'll read it at a normal conversational speed. La escuela empieza a las 8 en punto. Entonces, León se despierta a las 5 y se levanta inmediatamente. Después de levantarse, se ducha, se lava el pelo con champú y se cepilla los dientes con un cepillo de dientes y pasta de dientes. La escuela empieza a las 8 en punto. Entonces, León se despierta a las 5 y se levanta inmediatamente. Después de levantarse, se ducha, se lava el pelo con champú y se cepilla los dientes con un cepillo de dientes y pasta de dientes. This time, I want you to read it along with me. As I say each sentence, repeat it out loud, making sure you're pronouncing the words as correctly as you can. La escuela empieza a las 8 en punto. Entonces, León se despierta a las 5 y se levanta inmediatamente. Después de levantarse, se ducha, se lava el pelo con champú y se cepilla los dientes con un cepillo de dientes y pasta de dientes. Rewind the video and do it again until you're comfortable with the words and how they sound. You can record yourself and play it back if you want to, just to work on your pronunciation. Now let's start the lesson. You'll need to follow along with me, repeat when you need to, follow all the instructions and cues, and just have fun with it. Remember, you can always stop, pause, and rewind as much as you need to make sure you're understanding. Vamos! Let's start with a quick review of time expressions. As you should remember, to make a time expression, the most important part is the article before the number. So for 1 o'clock, you use the article la to say la una, 1 o'clock. You use las in front of all the other numbers to say 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Las dos, las tres, las cuatro, las cinco, las seis, and so on. In your story, it says la escuela empieza a las 8 en punto. En punto is when we would say in English, 8 o'clock sharp, 9 o'clock sharp. You need to be here at 10:30 sharp. Tienes que estar aquí a las 10:30 en punto. Empieza is begins. So, la escuela empieza a las 8 en punto. When does school start? A las 8 en punto. Go to your additional vocabulary under expresiones, and you've got a eso de las 8. A eso de las 8 is the opposite. It is around 8 o'clock. So school does not start a eso de las 8, it starts a las 8 en punto. Another way to say begins is comienza. So you have two expressions that mean the same thing. The verbs comenzar and empezar. Comienza and empieza. They're pretty much synonymous in English. Synonymous means the same. So la escuela empieza a las 8 en punto or la escuela comienza a las 8 en punto. Termina is ends, so la escuela termina a las 3. School ends at 3 o'clock. La escuela no termina a las 4. School does not end at 4 o'clock. Inmediatamente is immediately. Normalmente is normally or usually. And un rato is a little while. We'll be using those expressions momentarily. So, ¿cuándo empieza la escuela? ¿La escuela empieza a las 9 en punto? No, la escuela empieza a las 8 en punto. Entonces, León se despierta a las 5. Entonces, you already know, means therefore or so. Se despierta, he wakes up. This is a type of verb called reflexive. Let's take a look at reflexive verbs and how they work. Reflexive verbs can look a little strange when you first see them in Spanish, but we've been using them pretty much since day one. Do you remember me llamo? ¿Cómo te llamas? Mi amigo se llama Carlos. Mi amiga se llama Rosa. Technically, me llamo doesn't mean my name is, it means I call myself. So, ¿cómo te llamas? What do you call yourself? ¿Cómo se llama? What does he or she call herself? Mi madre se llama Susana. My mom calls herself Susana. Mi padre se llama Carlos. My father calls himself Carlos. Reflexive verbs have what is called a reflexive pronoun in front of the verb. This pronoun has to agree with the verb. Me llamo, me, myself, llamo, I call. I call myself. Te llamas, te, yourself, llamas, you call. You call yourself. Mi madre se llama, se, herself, llama, she calls. Mi madre se llama Susana. My mother calls herself Susana. So you may have noticed that in English, to use a reflexive verb, you have to use self, myself, himself, yourself, themselves. Think of it as looking into a mirror. Who do we see in a mirror? We see ourselves. So these are things we're going to be doing to our physical selves. For example, wash my hands, take a bath, put on a shirt, shave, brush my teeth. I like to tell my students that these are things that you typically do in front of or around a mirror. And who do you see when you look into a mirror? You see yourself. You see your reflection. Get it? Reflexive verbs. Reflection. On your recommended additional vocabulary, let's look at verbos reflexivos. How can you spot a reflexive verb? That's very easy. You have se tagged on to the end of the infinitive. So maquillarse is to put makeup on oneself, to put makeup on. Bañarse is to bathe oneself, to get a bath. Vestirse is to dress oneself, to get dressed. Ponerse is to put something on oneself, like to put a shirt on or to put pants on. Acostarse is to lay oneself down, to lay down, go to bed. Dormirse is to go to sleep. Afeitarse is to shave oneself, to shave. Cepillarse el pelo is to brush your hair. Peinarse is to fix your hair. Lavarse la cara is to wash your face. Lavarse las manos is to wash your hands. And quedarse is to stay or remain. A quick note about cepillarse el pelo, lavarse la cara, and lavarse las manos. In Spanish, you don't need a possessive if you're doing something to a part of your own body. So if I'm washing my hands, it's just me lavo las manos. If I'm washing my face, me lavo la cara. It's pretty much just instinctual that you're doing it to your own hands or your own face. If you're using a reflexive verb, it would be redundant to say my hand and my face because just using a reflexive verb implies you're doing it to yourself. Because the action is reflexive, it lends itself to things you do daily routines. Going to bed, waking up, getting out of bed, taking a shower, washing your hands, washing your face. The verbs themselves work like every other verb in the Spanish language, except you have an additional reflexive pronoun. Your reflexive pronouns are me, te, se, nos, and if you're in Spain, os. All you do is choose the correct possessive pronoun and put it right in front of the verb. Me despierto. I wake up. Me lavo la cara. I wash my face. Me ducho. I take a shower. Me visto. I get dressed. Te vistes. You get dressed. Te duchas o te bañas. Do you take a shower or get a bath? Mi hermano se despierta a las 4. My brother wakes up or wakes himself at 4 o'clock. The biggest thing about reflexive verbs is they must agree. If you're talking about yourself, first person, you have to use the pronoun me. If you're talking to someone, second person, you have to use the pronoun te. If you're talking about someone, third person, singular or plural, you have to use the pronoun se. And if you're talking about ourselves, first person plural, nos. And they have to match the ending of your verb. So you can't say me llamas. That would be you call me, so it's not reflexive. I'm not doing it to myself. Again, you have seen these before. Me llamo Profesor Rackley. ¿Cómo te llamas? Mi mamá se llama Susana y mi papá se llama Carlos. Some of these verbs are going to sound a little different when we use them. From your story, the verb despertarse, which means to wake up, the E will turn into an IE. Me despierto, I wake up. Te despiertas, you wake up. Se despierta, he or she wakes up. Nos despertamos, we wake up. Os despertáis, y'all wake up in Spain. Se despiertan, they wake up, y'all wake up. The verb vestirse, to get dressed, the E will turn into an I. Me visto, I get dressed. Te vistes, you get dressed. Se viste, he or she gets dressed. Nos vestimos, we get dressed. Os vestís. Y'all get dressed in Spain. Se visten. They get dressed. Y'all get dressed. Look at the verb acostarse. The O is going to turn into a UE. Me acuesto. I lay down. I go to bed. Te acuestas. You lay down. You go to bed. Se acuesta. He goes to bed. She goes to bed. He lays down. She lays down. Nos acostamos. We go to bed. We lay down. Os acostáis. Y'all lay down. Y'all go to bed. Only in Spain. Se acuestan. They go to bed. Y'all go to bed. They lay down. Y'all lay down. The verb dormirse also has an O to UE change there. Me duermo. I go to sleep. Te duermes. You go to sleep. Se duerme. He goes to sleep. She goes to sleep. Nos dormimos. We go to sleep. Os dormís. Y'all go to sleep in Spain. Se duermen. They go to sleep. Y'all go to sleep. The verb poner only has one change. Only if I'm talking about myself. It becomes me pongo. So if I say I put on a shirt, me pongo una camisa. The rest of them are normal. Te pones, se pone, nos ponemos, os ponís, and se ponen. With these spell-changing verbs, my advice is just to remember key sentences and think about how they sound. I put on a shirt, me pongo una camisa. I wake up at 5:30, me despierto a las 5:30. Do you go to bed early? ¿Te acuestas temprano? I go to bed late. Me acuesto tarde. I wake up late. Me despierto tarde. My brother wakes up early. Mi hermano se despierta temprano. My sister wakes up late. Mi hermana se despierta tarde. My parents go to bed early. Mis padres se acuestan temprano. Are you going to bed? ¿Te acuestas? I go to sleep at 11 o'clock. Me duermo a las 11. What time do you go to sleep? ¿A qué hora te duermes? My parents go to sleep at midnight. Mis padres se duermen a la medianoche. Notice how they all agreed with each other. Se duerme. Me despierto. Te acuestas. Me pongo. Let's go back to the story. We know that la escuela empieza a las 8 en punto. Entonces, León se despierta a las 5 y se levanta inmediatamente. Levantarse is to get up or get out of bed. So, se despierta, he wakes up a las 5 y se levanta inmediatamente. Inmediatamente is a cognate, so you can figure out that that means he gets up immediately. Después de levantarse, notice that the se is tagged onto the end of the infinitive. When you use reflexive verbs in the infinitive, you have a couple of choices. The subject pronouns can either go in front of the main verb of the sentence, or you could just tag them onto the back of the infinitive. For example, no quiero levantarme. I don't want to get up. You could put the me in front and say, no me quiero levantar. Quiero quedarme en la cama un rato. I want to stay in the bed for a little while. Me quiero quedar en la cama un rato. ¿Prefieres ducharte en las noches o en las mañanas? Do you prefer to take a shower at night or in the mornings? That could be, ¿te prefieres duchar en las noches o en las mañanas? ¿Vas a lavarte el pelo hoy? Are you going to wash your hair today? ¿Te vas a lavar el pelo hoy? Vamos a despertarnos temprano. We're going to wake up early. Nos vamos a despertar temprano. So literally, the choice is yours. Whichever one you like best, use it. Both forms are completely correct. So if someone says, ¿te vas a acostar temprano mañana? Sí, me voy a acostar temprano mañana. Sí, voy a acostarme temprano mañana. It's that easy. From your story, se ducha, He takes a shower. Se lava el pelo. He washes his hair con champú. Champú, you've probably guessed, is shampoo. Y se cepilla los dientes. He brushes his teeth con un cepillo de dientes y pasta de dientes. Cepillo de dientes, toothbrush. Pasta de dientes, toothpaste. ¿A qué hora se despierta? Se despierta a las 5. What time does he wake up? He wakes up at 5 o'clock. ¿Se levanta inmediatamente? Does he get up immediately? Sí, se levanta inmediatamente. ¿Se queda en la cama? Does he stay in bed? No, no se queda en la cama. Se levanta inmediatamente. ¿Qué hace después de levantarse? ¿Se ducha o se baña? Does he take a shower? Does he take a bath? Se ducha. ¿Qué se lava? What does he wash? Se lava el pelo. He washes his hair. Let's look at some productos de cuidado personal, personal care items. You have crema de afeitar, shaving cream, maquillaje, makeup, jabón, soap, desodorante, deodorant, and loción, lotion. ¿Se lava el pelo con crema de afeitar? Does he wash his hair with shaving cream? No, no se lava el pelo con crema de afeitar, se lava el pelo con champú. ¿Se cepilla los dientes con desodorante? No, se cepilla los dientes con un cepillo de dientes y pasta de dientes. ¿Se cepilla los dientes con loción? No, no se cepilla los dientes con loción, se cepilla los dientes con un cepillo de dientes y pasta de dientes. What about you? ¿Te cepillas los dientes con desodorante? No, me cepillo los dientes con un cepillo de dientes y pasta de dientes. Let's put it all together and look at some questions and answers. You'll need your notes and a copy of the story in front of you. Vamos. ¿A qué hora empieza la escuela de León? La escuela de León empieza a las 8. La escuela de León empieza a las 8 en punto. ¿Empieza a las 8 en punto o a eso de las 8? Empieza a las 8 en punto. ¿Cómo se dice 8 o'clock sharp en español? Se dice las 8 en punto. ¿Cómo se dice a eso de las 8 en inglés? Se dice around 8 o'clock. ¿Qué hace León a las 5? A las 5, León se despierta. ¿A qué hora se despierta León? León se despierta a las 5. ¿A qué hora te despiertas? Me despierto a las blank. ¿A qué hora te acuestas? Me acuesto a las blank. ¿Cuándo se levanta León? León se levanta inmediatamente. ¿A qué hora te levantas normalmente? Normalmente me levanto a las blank. Or, normalmente me levanto inmediatamente. ¿Te levantas inmediatamente o te quedas en la cama? Me levanto inmediatamente. Me quedo en la cama. ¿Qué hace el león después de levantarse? Después de levantarse, león se ducha. ¿León se baña o se ducha? León se ducha. ¿Prefieres bañarte o ducharte? Prefiero bañarme. Prefiero ducharme. ¿Te duchas en las mañanas o en las noches? Me ducho en las mañanas. Me ducho en las noches. ¿Con qué se lava el pelo, León? León se lava el pelo con champú. ¿Cómo se dice shampoo en español? Se dice champú. ¿Qué hace León con el champú? León se lava el pelo con el champú. ¿Qué haces con el champú? Me lavo el pelo con el champú. ¿Cómo se dice toothbrush en español? Se dice cepillo de dientes. ¿Cómo se dice toothpaste en español? Se dice pasta de dientes. ¿Qué hace León con el cepillo de dientes? León se cepilla los dientes con el cepillo de dientes. ¿Qué hace León con la pasta de dientes? León se cepilla los dientes con la pasta de dientes. ¿Qué haces con el cepillo de dientes? Me cepillo los dientes con el cepillo de dientes. ¿Qué haces con la pasta de dientes? Me cepillo los dientes con la pasta de dientes. ¿Te maquillas? Sí, me maquillo. No, no me maquillo. ¿Te afeitas? Sí, me afeito. No, no me afeito. ¿Te pones desodorante? Sí, me pongo desodorante. No, no me pongo desodorante. ¿Te vistes en el baño o en tu cuarto? Me visto en el baño. Me visto en el cuarto. ¿Te acuestas temprano o tarde? Me acuesto temprano. Me acuesto tarde. Excellent job. Again, make sure you go back and review all of these questions and answers until you feel comfortable with them and are ready to move forward. Now it's quiz time. I'm going to give you 20 questions and see how well you can answer them. You're going to need your journal and notebook and something to write with, and they will go by quickly, so pause and rewind as much as you need to write them down. Do your best and, of course, no cheating. Bien hecho! We'll see you back again soon for your next lesson. Hasta luego!